Hi, this is Tim, and welcome to the Conversations with Tim. Tonight we have two people. In the past, what we've been doing, we're kind of transitioning right now, and I've been doing most of the talking. People ask me questions, then I answer questions, and so the conversation with Tim piece has been more of a Q&A. People ask the question in the comment section, I respond, and that was quote the conversation. Tonight, we're going to make some adjustments, and we're going to invite some other people into the conversation. And we'll do that, I won't say every week, but most weeks maybe. Obviously, for those who know me, I'm a pastor at Cross Church. We started this at the church level for our church and for those people. I'm also the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm deeply committed to economic development and those kind of topics. And so I'm really involved in the business culture and helping entrepreneurs and those kind of things. So I'm encouraging that. So some of our times that we'll have conversations with Tim, they'll be very spiritual. They'll be all on spiritual topics. They'll be on Bible questions and things like that. And I'll have another pastor or someone like that maybe on with me. We're having conversations that direction. Other nights maybe on completely different topics, like maybe I have someone from the health department that comes in and talks with me about things related to the health department in Macoupin County and topics like that. Tonight, who I have is Scott Stinson. And Scott is, he's the managing director of Central Realty. And they own the Plaza and many other properties, and mostly in small towns. And he's I've known him, I don't know how many years now, but a long time. And I've got a lot of stories that I can tell you about the relationship that we've built, the credibility that he has with me, the things I've seen him do, times I've seen him be generous, times I've seen him work through difficult things, the times I've seen, sometimes in the community, you'll say, well, why don't we have this kind of a store? Why don't we have that kind of a store? And Scott just keeps it all even keel. But behind the scenes, I know that there are times that we've had those kind of stores very interested, and then some sort of drama or some sort of conflict would take place. And then the ownership groups, management groups would back out because of the drama or the conflict. And so, I've watched Scott when I would have walked away, or when most of us would want to walk away. I've watched Scott stay in Carlinville, and he's from St. Louis. He's not from Carlinville, but I've watched him continue to engage Carlinville for over a decade now. I will say 15 years, 16 years. I mean, a long time. So I've watched this. So that's who Scott is. I've also invited on Richard Oswald, and many of you in Carlinville will know Richard. Maybe you don't know, those outside Carlinville may not know him, but Richard is a State Farm agent here in Carlinville, and he's also the president of Winning Communities. And so Winning Communities and Chamber of Commerce, we're like sister organizations. We're attached to the HIP, and Richard and I have had lots and lots of these business type conversations over the years. And so I invited him in. So really what you're going to get the opportunity to do now is set in on a conversation that Richard and I and Scott would have on like any given day, sitting, drinking a cup of coffee at a restaurant, or sitting in one of our offices, or over email, wherever it happens to be. These are the kind of conversations we have. And so we want to invite you in to listen to us. And if you have questions, please in the comment section, please ask the questions. Adam is there, and he will bring those questions up to us so we can answer some questions. And I think we have a few to start off with that people have already sent in. So Adam, would you go ahead and let Scott and Richard in? Hello, guys. For those who don't know, Richard is the bearded wonder down in the bottom. Okay, that's Richard Oswald, and Scott is up in the upper right-hand corner. Oh, there's our names. We got names now and everything, so we're fancy. That's good. One thing I didn't say that I kind of want. Could you guys hear me in the back room thing? Could you guys hear what I was saying?
Us?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but Scott, I want to say something for everybody, because I don't know that, some people will know who you are and some people won't know who you are, but I don't know what the right word will be. I'll just say that over the years, you have provided a lot of education for me, a lot of information. You've taken time not just to give me information as in here's information, but you explain what the information meant. You explain where it came from. You've re-explained it multiple times. You've given me time to digest information. And I just feel like you have a wealth of knowledge, and I don't want to pick it all out tonight because there's no way to do that in a limited time frame. But over the weeks and months ahead, I want to have you back at multiple times and maybe more specific and more targeted conversations. But I just believe you have a lot to give and a lot of information. I'm going to start off with the sign because that's kind of the hot topic, but I really want us to talk about the opportunities that are that with your experience in other communities that you see happening in the Midwest and in small towns like ours. So let's just start off with the plaza. Hey, beautiful sign, right? Crazy sign.
Crazy.
I was telling people the other day, it's like Scott told me 2 years ago he wanted this iconic sign. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's iconic. Somebody says it's awesome. What's awesome? Awesome's a relative term, and well, iconic's like a relative term. Well, that is an iconic sign, that
you hit the mark.
He hit the mark. And so if he wanted to stop and he wanted people to be able to stop on the side of the road, because we have a lot of people who travel, if you didn't know this, from Chicago out to California on Route 66. They come right through Carlinville. And he wanted people to be motivated to see that sign and be motivated by that sign to stop and have their picture taken. And I think it makes a tremendous statement. So I kind of want to go back to how you envisioned the sign. And just kind of what was that? What stirred that in you? Like what really made that start happening in you? And I don't know if you want to start there because I don't want the sign to overshadow this. Okay, but obviously we've seen the part that, and I don't want to throw out money numbers, but they're big numbers. Okay, but you've done a lot with the pavement. Okay, the land, the blacktop. It made a huge difference just doing blacktop. I saw a picture where you had lights that are along the walkway now that make things different. There are things you do that everybody sees, like that sign, and there's things that happen that nobody gets to know about. So just take some time and kind of catch us up maybe on some of the stuff that nobody knows about, and then get us to the sign, or start with the sign and get us to the things that we don't see. Ever how you want to go. Just talk about the improvements that we see at the Plaza property.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
You need to turn your mic on. Your mic's off.
Not on?
Is the audio button down there somewhere?
It looks like it's on. That's unmute.
On mine, it's the far left. It's the audio. Are you there now?
I'm here, but you can't hear me.
Not yet.
But you heard me before, right?
Not yet.
Huh. I don't know.
All right. So we don't have audio with Scott.
But we had audio before.
Oh, they can hear him. So somebody can hear. I can't hear him, but other people can hear him.
Everybody else can hear me, but Tim?
I'm hearing that other people hear him.
I cannot hear him. Can you hear me?
I hear you. I hear Richard.
Okay. Yeah.
Adam, I hear Richard. I hear Richard, but I do not hear Scott. But I've got Alyssa has texted me and she says she hears him, and Eric hears him on YouTube.
Huh.
So I know people are hearing him. So is that on our end, Adam? I'm trying to see what Adam's saying to me. Tim can't hear. He had audio before, right? Yes, he had audio before.
Adam hears
everybody. Eric and Adam can hear them all.
Well, you want me to talk since everybody else can hear me? Yeah, I'll go ahead and start, and let's just start with the sign. I agree. I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on it, but I think we've been really fortunate. A lot of plans we've been making for years have kind of just happened to come to fruition right as we got hit by the pandemic, and we could get a lot of things done in the last 30 days. But the sign was an issue that even without the Route 66, was an issue for this property because when it was built, it faces Wilson. And Route 4 is really the primary traffic road, and there was not much of a sign on Route 4. So we knew, and we, we like to have a strong relationship with the tenants, and we talked to them, and all of the tenants felt like they needed exposure to Route 4. And so we kind of started working on designing a sign, but the deeper and more involved we got into Carlinville, we realized there's that Route 66 connection. There's the Sears home neighborhood, and it's really the front door to Carlinville on the north side. When you come under that bridge, then you're right there. And so we went through a bunch of iterations of the sign, and finally we worked with a sign out of Springfield, who is one of the premier Route 66 sign makers. They do really, really great signs all over the country. And we kind of had a sign, and I kind of went back to them and I said, it just needs something a little more. And they came back with the design that you see there now. And, it was kind of a bold risk, but it's unique. I've never seen anything like it. And I hope it'll make a great statement for years to come. We're very excited in the way it turned out, and really thrilled that we had, such a great partner like A Sign that could pull that off.
That's amazing. It's amazing. I've already seen people driving by, taking pictures, taking selfies. My daughter and her friends had to go out and take a picture of the night by it, and things like that. So it's a beautiful sign. So I got on and off, and now I can hear you and all that kind of stuff. So kind of catch me up. What was did you talk about some of the things you've done that we haven't seen yet?
No. And so the things that we've, obviously when we got the plaza in 2005, Rural King was gone, Aldi was gone, Dollar General was on their way out. And, there was a lot of just deterioration. So we've been battling a lot of different things to try and bring the plaza back. The stuff that we've done recently, we did all new LED lighting on the walkway. We did LED lighting in the DMV. We did LED lighting in the H&R block space. We did, there's a vacancy that I'm not sure if it used to be Sullivan's. I know there was an auction service in it. It's kind of between Happy Dog and the Illinois Extension that doesn't have a storefront. We put all new LED lighting in there, and we're in the process of cleaning that space up and making it rentable. That's one of the last 2 spaces we have available. And then obviously we did the paving. We did some new parking on the backside of the DMV, some handicap parking back there. We restriped that and reworked that a little bit. We put some curbing, and we're working with the Carlinville Bee people to do 2 planter beds right there in front of Reflections. Wow. So if you go over there, you'll see that there's actually concrete curbing. We've separated out that big lot that was there. We made a new motorcycle testing area for the DMV. And then we're going to have these pollinator plants in there, and we've been working real close with those guys, and really kind of, honestly, the center's got too much asphalt, so we're kind of excited to get rid of some of it and turn it into other kinds of uses. And so, we've completed all of that, and we've got ceiling tiles that are being taken out of the Rural King space. We took a couple of years ago, we took all the asbestos floor tile and glue out of there. Now we're taking all the ceiling tiles out. We're continuing to kind of just get that space ready for something. And it's just a continual job. We're doing some roofing. I've got a roof contract out, and we've got some roof work that's going to start here in a couple of weeks. And it's just slowly but surely doing, rebuilding the bones and the structure and everything that you need to do. Wow.
Well, we're grateful. I mean, it's a big investment that you're making, and I before we get out today, I want to talk about that a little bit. But matter of fact, let's just bring up the next question. The next question kind of helped me get into this a little bit. What are some of the things that make Carlinville attractive to a company like Central Realty? Why, what motivates you to invest so much in our community? What's really the motivation?
Well, to start with, our company kind of specializes in small town retail, and we believe, maybe contrary to a lot of the rest of the world, that small towns are very stable places, and that's not really, what you hear out in the investment world. But there's a lot of things to like about Carlinville. The population's really stable. You got some, it's been stable for 100 years. It hasn't changed, really a lot one way or the other. You've got some great employers. You got a college. One of my favorite statistics is Carlinville has 4 million people within a 100-mile radius. And so I think when you think about new businesses and tourism, that's a huge, you don't need that many of those people to come to Carlinville to really make everybody have a much better year. If you can entice them to come through, whether they're biking or coming down Route 66 or just coming to visit the courthouse or the historical society or, whatever the reason is. So love to try and get them to stay overnight. We can talk about that later. But I think the location's good in between St. Louis and Springfield, and it's got a big population around it, and it's a neat town.
So the third question is, what types of businesses have you targeted? And again, don't tell us what you feel comfortable not sharing what you don't need to share, but what kind of business have you targeted as potential partners in the remaining spaces at the Plaza that you feel comfortable talking about?
Well, I'll talk about anything really. The most obvious two are the farm store and a grocery store. That's really what everybody wants, and those are two really, really big obvious holes. And unfortunately, we're kind of in this limbo time where a lot of corporates have left small towns and you can't get them to come back. And in particular in Carlinville, that's affected us in a couple ways. Obviously, Aldi left. Aldi, I don't know that you'd get them to come to Carlinville today if there wasn't one already in Litchfield. But a lot of these stores in Litchfield feel like they're getting all of the Carlinville business, so there's no reason for them to come to Carlinville. And since they don't have a lot of competitors that are willing to come in and go, take the risk to come to Carlinville and siphon off that business, they're not forced to do anything. And so, grocery wise, we've done numerous studies on both of those. There is a good piece of business on both the grocery side and on the farm store side. There just aren't any chains at this point interested in coming. We've been pretty close with both types, but in today's climate, that's not happening. Now, what we do see happening is there are people getting creative. There are some co-op grocery stores. Illinois Institute of Rural Affairs has a grant. They've been doing some of those. I think one of them is just to the northwest of Carlinville, not too far away, where communities are putting together a pool of people and running their own store and connecting with the local farmers. Those kind of things are starting to happen. There's other niches out there, health food stores, there's entertainment niches, microbreweries, and obviously the pandemic kind of changes the calculations on all those things in the short term. But at some point, there's opportunities there.
Do you think, Scott, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm back. Do you think, Scott, that with what's going on, the great pause, that it's going to accelerate some of those things for retail, for like food, direct, not really farm to table, but working on small co-ops? We're seeing a lot of that on social media now, selling beef.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that sort of happened, and I'll use a Carlinville example with Holly Crow in the shoe store, is you had a lot of chains pull back from small stores or small towns, and they left some holes. Obviously not everybody's going to be satisfied with the selection that you have at Walmart. And Holly was able to take advantage of that hole in the market and open up a store that serves the needs of the community. And I'm sure she pulls people to Carlinville, which is really what you want to do, is ultimately we want to pull people in from a 15, 30 mile radius to shop in Carlinville. And so yeah, I think those opportunities exist in grocery. And I think, this is my personal opinion. I really think this online stuff is overrated. I'm not saying it's going to go away, but you could call the grocery store in the 50s and have them deliver the groceries to your house. It's really not that much different. Yeah, you can go and type it and it's easy to do it and put your credit card in. But I think what's happened with the pandemic is it's actually highlighted the value the local store has, because you can go there and get it now. I ordered something on Home Depot last week. It told me it was in the store, and I got an email saying, we've got your order. We'll email you when it's ready. 4 days later, nothing. I called them, was on hold for an hour, and they said, we're going to try and get it ready tonight, and you can pick it up maybe tomorrow. 4 more days later, nothing. And I canceled the order. So I'd rather just go down to my local Ace Hardware and say, hey, where is this thing? So, and I think the internet is accessible to, and you see a lot of Carlinville merchants are using the Facebook Live and Facebook to promote, but any merchant can sell online. I mean, it makes the world accessible to them. So why do they have to order from Amazon? Why not, Crow Boot and Shoe, or why not order some chili from Taylor's online? And so I do think those opportunities are there, but are the entrepreneurs there? That's the thing I find is there's not a lot of retail entrepreneurs out there. We're fortunate to have a lot of them in Carlinville, surprisingly.
And part of that's the risk. The people who want to take the risk to step into that, it's like there's money. There's people who have the courage and no money, and the people who have the money, and I don't really want to do that. I don't want to risk what I got, and there's that dilemma that takes place.
Well, can I answer Chris Hartsook's question that's down at the bottom?
Yep.
So Mr. Hartsook, the farm store stuff that we've seen, and we met with the farm store co-ops, it probably would take someone local, probably a little over $1 million, and this is probably a couple years old, of their own money to get that thing off the ground. And we know it probably would do anywhere from $4 to $6 million a year in sales. There's business to be had. But right now you've got Carlinville surrounded by Rural King, Quincy Farm and Home, and Big R in Springfield, and Quincy Farm and Home in Springfield, and they're all the same co-op, so they're getting all the business.
Okay, so while we're on that topic, and it's the same one I was going to transition with, like we used to talk about Holly, Crow Boot and Shoe. I don't think she'd mind me saying this. So one of the examples of things you've done to help me was you taught me about this thing called a leak study. Now, I knew the information, I knew the concept of that, but you taught me about a leak study, and you had given me one that you guys had done. And so I was having a conversation with a friend of mine named Holly one day, and she was talking about maybe some options and things she was looking at. And it showed on there how much money is related to the shoe market and some of the things that leaked out of Carlinville. Okay. And that was some part of her making a decision to move that direction. That played some role in that. Okay. So your influence, was you were a part of that conversation because you helped me. Okay. I gave it to a friend made a decision. You made a comment just now to Chris's conversation or question was, it will take about $1 million in a local investor. And then you said, but there's a $4 to $6 million farm and home store in Carlinville. Would you just kind of unpack that a little bit? Take a few minutes and explain leak studies. How do you know there's a $4 million farm and home store in Carlinville? Some of that information.
Okay. So what a leak study does is you basically, every city, Carlinville's 5,700 people roughly. So, they can extrapolate and say, okay, a town the size of Carlinville should be spending, let's say, $10 million in hardware sales. And then they go look at Carlinville sales tax receipts and they say, well, they're only spending $8 million in Macoupin County or in Carlinville. They usually do it by county and city. And so there's maybe a $2 million opportunity just out of your own population, and maybe more if you get a positive leak number if you're actually pulling in from outside of your community. And so we usually get ours from the Illinois Institute of Rural Affairs, which is out of Western Illinois University. They produce those for any community that asks for them. But then with respect to the farm store and the grocery store and some of those bigger players, they actually have consultants that'll come in and analyze a market, and they'll literally analyze. And we've paid for some of these at the Plaza, where they'll analyze, Carlinville and say, okay, this farm store will do this many dollars. And they'll go to the point of saying, okay, they're going to take so many dollars from Rural King and Litchfield, and so many from Big R and Springfield, and so much from Quincy Farm and Home in Jerseyville. And they really quantify where the money's coming from and why they think it's going to come to that store, and what categories of things that they should actually be selling. because there may be somebody in, like one thing that I think Carlinville has a steel dealer, and steel's a big thing that farm stores like to have. So that if they can't sell that, then what can they replace that with, or what else can they do that with? And we've had a couple of different grocery stores come in and look at the market as well and do similar kind of things. But the real issue, at least with the farm store part and maybe with the grocer, is just, that's a lot of money for an individual layout. You got to decide that's going to be your living for the next 20 or 30 years. And you got to have people that, you got to have someone that wants to run it. Retail is not an easy life. And you got to have either investors or enough capital behind that they can get that thing off the ground and get it going.
Okay. So let's go to the next question, Adam. What's your next question? What are the things our community could improve on to make it more attractive to potential business?
I think what I would like to see when I first got involved with the Plaza at one time, there was the Macoupin County Economic Development. I would love to see a Carlinville focused group. I go to a lot of different shopping center conventions, economic development conferences. We actually had a small shopping center conference in Carlinville a couple of years ago at Blackburn. But I'd like to see, somebody from Carlinville alongside me at those things. And actually maybe someone that's focused in, again, you got a lot, the days of the small town landing the whale. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but the ice cream plant or the auto plant, those are pretty slim opportunities and they're hard to get. But, if you're out there talking to, companies in St. Louis or Springfield, and maybe they're expanding and they need a second office, or a call center, or they need a small plant for something. I think just getting Carlinville's name out there all the time and somebody that's exploring all of the development dollars and working with developers that are out there to bring them in. We've got a great opportunity with the Sears home neighborhood. We've got the incentives in place, but we've never really put anyone over there to really take charge and work on it. So just, being able to allocate the resources to have a more permanent presence out there, trying to pull business into the city and take advantage of the opportunities that are available to the city.
Okay. Next question, Adam. Love it. What makes the sign sparkle at the top? Does it have lights in it? Because I saw even when it's on the ground and on the trailer, it's all shimmery.
There are 20,000, I think they call them sun seekers or sign seekers. They're little plates that are mirrored that wiggle. And there's 20,000 on there. There's LED lights and there's some neon at the bottom with the Plaza, but there's 20,000 of those little mirrored panels up there.
Because it did it when it was. Because I kept thinking, is that battery power? What is that? Because it was all shimmery. It's kind of crazy. That's a good question. All right, next question. Hey Scott, you've met Pete, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. What are some ways the Plaza tenants are pivoting their businesses to survive and thrive through the quarantine period?
I think it varies by tenant, and obviously some of them are just shut down and not able to do much of anything. I'm really excited that the Plaza Cafe is going to open up. I think for Mother's Day, she's going to start having to-go orders. Obviously the laundromat's been open. Little Italy's hasn't really been that affected that much, but H&R Block's still been open. But Happy Dog, the daycare part's been shut down. I think they're going to start being able to open up grooming. D&D was able to stay open for a while, but then they've had to shut down. And I think a lot of them are just taking advantage to, kind of rethink their business, rethink what their offerings are. And I think that, and I've said this to a couple of the tenants that are particularly more retail oriented. I really think having an online component is important now. When you go out to eat now in St. Louis, they don't, like I just did on my bike, which I know Richard Oswald saw that a little while ago. they don't want you swiping their credit card. You want to go on there and order. So having a online component where someone can order, pay, either come and pick up, or even they can sit down and eat it while they've already paid for it. I mean, just, if you've got, I think Deb Ceramic is now doing kind of an appointment only kind of thing. I think Wendy's doing that at It Is What It Is. And it's a struggle for everybody. It's a tough time. And I think, coming out of it, it's not going to go right back to normal. So, I think everybody's got to think about ways that they can adapt and change how they do business going forward.
Wouldn't you, though, let's say you wanted to get something off the ground? We've got a bakery coming. I won't say a whole lot about that. I guess it's out there. But aren't you going to want to be ready to kind of leap as you're coming out of something like this as opposed to going into it? Of course, you don't always have that information.
Right. Well, I think that obviously, you can look around in the area where I work and I see restaurants that I just saw one today that opened up in the Loop in U City in St. Louis. This guy spent millions of dollars and then this hit and he closed. And so you can open up at the wrong time. And obviously I think our bakery is going to hit it at the right time. But yeah, you definitely want to come out and, come out with whatever your new plan is. And I think I love the way a lot of the businesses in Carlinville collaborate. And I think that's a big part of that retail ecosystem is, if we got a bakery and she can sell her product at 2 or 3 restaurants in town, that, that helps everybody. And so I just think everybody promoting and working together is going to be the key to that.
And there seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there seems to be some kind of softer side to business in small towns now. You see it on social media with the loyalty on the carryouts and, leaving big tips. You hear things like that. And are we kind of getting back to some of this friendliness and loyalty to vendors?
I hope so. I think service, if you read a lot of the articles about why, the pandemic has accelerated problems with some of the bigger retailers like Macy's, and I think J. Crew filed for bankruptcy and some of those guys. But if you think about it, most of those stores were the same. I mean, you could take me into a Penny's versus a Kohl's versus a Macy's, and they've all got the same product at basically the same price points. So why do we need all that? And you don't get service, just like what I said about Home Depot earlier. So I think the service and knowing your customer and being able to relate to your customer and understand them. If somebody says, I've got a, Applebee's isn't going to really care. If you tell them you got an egg allergy and they can deal with it, they will. But if you tell your local cafe, they're going to probably know right when you come in, hey, we got to make sure we take care of this person. And I think that's a big value to small businesses. And I think that we are going to see more of that coming out of this.
I was talking to a guy in Bloomington today, a buddy, and he said there were 4 major restaurants that announced in the last week that we're just not going to open back up. We're gone. And I remember Logan's was one of them, Logan's Roadhouse or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Some big names are just leaving the landscape.
Right. Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to that conversation about Holly Crow in the shoe store. So, some people go out, what holes does that leave that somebody else can fill? Right. I hear a lot about, I hear a lot about a steakhouse, that we'd like to have a steakhouse in Carlinville. Well, there's an opportunity for someone, or to put something like that in. So you don't have to drive to Edwardsville or Springfield or wherever you go.
All right. Next question now. Oh, from Pete again. Scott, can you talk about some of the most successful small businesses you've seen and what makes them unique and able to beat big box stores for local business?
That's a tough question, Pete. I don't know that you can beat the big box stores. First of all, I mean, you can't go head to head with them on price. You just can't. You're going to lose. So what you can do is sell different quality, provide the service that they don't offer. I think that's always a really key component. And you may have to charge a little more for it. And some people, are just not going to shop at your store. You can't do anything about that. I mean, at the end of the day, people have the budget they have. They're going to spend what they have to spend and spend it where they feel like they need to spend it. But I think service and differentiation on your product and merchandise, don't try to sell what Walmart sells. Sell different products than what they have, or different than what Dollar General has. I think, I can just tell you about I got a lot of stores that I love in a lot of places, but one I keep thinking about, we don't have a brewery in Carlinville, and I worked in a little town called Marshall, Michigan, that's probably about maybe 10,000 people, and they had this little brewery, and it was like in a little metal industrial building behind a gas station, and you went in there and you looked at it, and they funded it by selling ceramic mugs for like $50 to the citizens. And you got to hang your mug up on the ceiling. So everybody, when you came in, the whole ceiling, like this whole ceiling here was mugs. And they were selling beer in 4 states. And I think they're still in business and doing well. They had food. And so that was, it was a local thing that somebody started, and they were pulling a lot of business into that town. I've got a friend of mine that's got a 100-year-old store in Williamsburg, Missouri called Crane's Country Store. His claim to fame is he sells $2 sandwiches, one meat, one cheese on white bread. But he sells Carhartt. He sells really expensive clothing. Clothing is in a town of about 100 people. And this guy he's got an internet business. He does a great business, has great social media presence. And I think there's any number of concepts that you see, but it's really just having a person at the heart of it that's got the vision and figuring out how to make it work and creating a loyal customer base.
That's a good answer. Before we get too far, other questions, I want to circle back around. I won't forget. Do you, how much do you want to talk about the possibility of Carlinville having a hotel?
A little bit.
Okay. Why don't we talk about that?
So one of the leakages we have, and it's kind of a little bit of a tough situation. So you got the Carlin Villa. I don't know that we have any Airbnbs anymore. We used to have a couple bed and breakfast. I'm not sure if there's much of that operating. And then you got the Magnuson out at the highway. And so what I believe is happening, and I think we've got market studies to prove this, is you have a lot of dollars that are leaving Carlinville, corporate hotel dollars, traveler dollars, because they cannot get what I would call a modern state-of-the-art hotel in town. And so what they're doing is they're going to Litchfield, or they're continuing down Route 66 and going somewhere else. Maybe they stay in Springfield. And there are some options for small towns. Again, it's kind of like the farm store, though. It takes local investment. And so the last time that we looked at this, it was probably about $1.6 million of local investment money. I was involved in a group that did one of these up in Paxton, Illinois, which is a town of about 4,000 just north of Champaign. I'm working with a couple towns on some of these hotels, and I'm not quite sure how the pandemic's going to affect that. Eventually, I think those come back, but I think right now, obviously, that number, those projections have got to be changed from what they were even a year ago. So, but I do think there's an opportunity, and I think if the studies that we've seen is, it's not just someone coming in and spending their $80 or $90 for a hotel room. They're buying gas, they're buying 1 or 2 meals. Maybe they stay more than one day. Maybe they're bringing their family in for a reunion or a high school reunion, or they're coming, we got a college, nowhere for the college people to stay unless they're going to drive out, 12 miles, which some people will do and some people won't do. So I do think there's an opportunity. So far we haven't been able to put together enough local interest to take advantage of it.
Okay. Along that, different than that specific situation, back to the farm and home store, with the same kind of topic of investors. So the issue with the hotel is we just need some local investors to come up with the 1.6, and then we could have it could be one person, or it could be a group of like 16 people that came up with 100,000 apiece, or and we have some that are interested in doing that. We just can't get enough to do it yet it's really what we need is someone to own that. Like we need a local person who'll say, I will own that, and I will contact my friends and their friends, and we'll come up with that. We'll figure out how to get that done. Let's go back to the farm and home store. You said, it needed like $1 million. Is it the kind of thing that is it like the hotel? Is that multiple people could come together and have an ownership group and collect that money together?
Yeah, I think absolutely. But the hotel's a little more of a formula because you can get the investors. You can put a hotel management company in charge of it that will run it. And really that's pretty easy. The farm store, you got to have a front person. You got to have someone that's going to run the store. And I think that's the key. You got to have someone that knows the farmers, knows the community, and is able to analyze the competition and figure out the sales and price things. Obviously, they would work with the co-op dealer to do that, but dealer with an investor group to back them.
Okay, I can't hear him again. Adam, would you go ahead and put the next question up?
Is there long-term
plans for the face of the plaza? I'm gonna go check out and come back on. You guys go ahead and talk.
All right, we'll be talking. Eric, thanks for that question. We have several options, and I think a lot of it depends on what the anchor tenant for that 31,000 feet wants to do. And I've kind of got mixed, opinions about it on whether we want to just upgrade what's there, whether it's painting or upgrading what's there and kind of keeping that look to keep it kind of the old style look. But we've got some other looks where we've got some new facades. And I think it's really going to be dependent on who comes into that 31,000 foot space.
All right. Next question, Adam. Where do you see brick and mortar stores fitting into the retail landscape of the future and in small towns in particular?
Well, I may have said this earlier. I really believe that, every study that I've seen says that only about 20% of sales can be done online, and that the other 80% are things that people just aren't going to buy online or they're going to want to pick up locally. So I'm a strong believer in brick and mortar. I think that it's kind of like back in when McDonald's added the drive-through, but the drive-through didn't get rid of McDonald's. It expanded the way they do business. And I feel like the internet is that for every retailer if they want to learn how to use it, properly. So at the end of the day, I think that small brick and mortar stores, going back to Crow Boot and Shoe, she can expand her audience and they can order and she can ship from Carlinville if she wants to. They can come to the store if they want to. They can call her on the phone if they want to. I think a small brick and mortar that provides good service and uses that technology to their benefit. I ordered something from a Carlinville retailer on the square on Facebook this week through Facebook Messenger. So, you can do business any number of ways. And I think, I think brick and mortar is not going anywhere. I think it's catching up to these big guys. Obviously these bigger companies had this technology first, and they've got a lot of people locked in using their technology because it's easy. But I think the small guys have that same opportunity to use it to compete.
And I think like going through the pandemic situation like this it's kind of forced, like in the church world, it's not just our church, but lots of churches, it's forced them to, ingenuity and creativity and a lot of changes. Well, the business world, you keep talking about Holly at Crow's. She's online now. She's got an e-commerce site. And so a lot of those, the big stores have already done it. They're masters at it now. And so a lot of us little guys now are starting to learn how to do it. And small towns are going to start learning how to do it. And so I can see a lot of positive things coming from the ones who kind of step into that. Richard, before we wrap up, you got any other questions you want to ask Scott?
I would maybe spin off that last one and let's go past retail into my world, which is office space and service businesses. What's that? Corporate America is working from home right now.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be working. I'm sure there's all kinds of issues that are popping up that managers are dealing with, and we're not working from home, we're locked in. But what's the future of that? What's the future of the 2,000 square foot office space, in your opinion?
I don't think it's going to go away, but I definitely think everybody's rethinking that. There's a lot of brokers that I follow, and they're all, talking about that. People are going to use 30% less office space, and maybe at the end of the day, I really don't know. We'll have to see. I do think there's a lot of value, at least in what I do, and having that person across the room from you, and you can yell back, what about this? What about this idea? Did you call this guy? And I think that you lose that when you're all separated and working from home. But can we work differently? Maybe we don't. Maybe the office becomes more of a central hub, and you don't have your own desk, but you come in and plug in and kind of do I don't know if any of you guys are following these places like WeWork, which has kind of been in the news a lot because it's a pretty big financial collapse. But let's take that space next to Happy Dog at the Plaza, and let's say that I had that thing fixed up and it was kind of cool looking, and you could pay 60, 70, 80, $100 a month and have a card to access it and have Wi-Fi and coffee and a couple different private areas in a conference room. Maybe that's where you do business, and you share it with 10 or 15 or 20 other people. And you just go in 1 or 2 days a week when you need it. So I think we've got a lot of different ways we can work, and I think that people are going to continue to get creative. But I can't really forecast where it's going to be.
Are you going to get a sneeze shield?
Scott, any other wrap up questions you have for us?
Not questions. I would just, I would first of all thank you guys for having me, and thank the city and the community. I mean, this is a team effort, and I think everybody's working together on it. One thing I did want to touch on, which I didn't, is just kind of a business opportunity, is ag value add. So, you see things like I saw somebody in I think Kentucky's making soy sauce out of soybeans. We've got a lot of products around Carlinville that maybe you do another step in the process and you're selling to Springfield, those 4 million people within 100 miles. Could be beer, could be something out of soy, could be something out of corn. But I think that's another opportunity, kind of going back to this local, and working together with local people. You got a lot of raw material that's going to big factories that maybe could be made into something else that would produce a higher profit.
Do you, what kind, you mentioned that. One time you mentioned me an ice cream store one time, and are there some other like opportunities that you just see off the top of your head right now that you want to throw out there?
I think health food is missing. I mean, it's not a huge segment of the market, but I think there's a market for that in Carlinville, especially with the college there. I think ice cream, the homemade kind of, I think at one time approached Prairie Farms to go right about where that new sign is. And, you're on Route 66. Why not have a little ice cream store there? And that didn't get them excited at the time. But I still think, kind of the homemade hand scooped ice cream kind of place is every town wants that. And I think, or a yogurt place, they take advantage of it. But, I think the sky's the limit. There's all kinds of concepts I see all over the place. And one of them in Kansas City is a pickleball place where they got a little food truck and 2 pickleball courts, and it's called Chicken and Pickle, and the guy's doing really, really well, or he was pre-pandemic. So there's retail is a very creative business. The one problem is everybody can copy it once you come up with the idea.
Right. Yeah. Everybody can jump on that. Kind of in a wrap up thing, I on behalf of lots of us, many of us, I just want to say thank you again for your investment in our community. It's a lot broader than a sign and things like that. I mean, I've seen you give out free advice. I've seen you show grace and kindness. Some version of whatever you want to call that, forgiveness or whatever, even when people, or when there was some drama that took place that hurt a deal that you had set up. And I'm personally grateful, and I happen to know a lot of information, so I know more reason to be grateful maybe than some people do. But I am personally grateful, and if they knew everything I knew, they'd be grateful too. And so they may be grateful for a sign, and they may be grateful for a parking lot, and I'm grateful for those things too. But I know the heart behind that, and one of the things I want us to be able to do on my conversations is I want to inspire hope in people. I want to remind people that we really are better together. But I also want to celebrate difference makers, and you fall in the category of a person who is a difference maker, and so I'm deeply grateful for you. So thank you for making time to be with us tonight and kind of share your heart. And Richard, thank you for being with us too, brother.
No problem.
And to everybody else, thank you for watching. We'll be back next Monday night with some more conversations with Tim.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.